Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast where a real statistics professor
and his friend Jake
and special guest Chris
gives you sports betting tips. I'm Professor Side. You can follow me and find all my picks on Twitter at Professor Side. You can follow my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. And you can follow our guest Chris on Twitter at HotTipBets Chris. He also does daily college basketball shows on his YouTube channel, HotTipBets. Links are in the description. Today is Tuesday, March 8th, 2022, and this episode covers today's best college basketball bets. Chris, how you doing? Welcome back.
Good. Happy to be back. Got some conference championships today. Some of the smaller conferences, but some still interesting games, I think. So happy to be here.
Yeah, we had a couple fun ones last night. I don't know why there are 6 tonight, and I think only 1 tomorrow. You'd have thought that they could spread those out a little bit better. There were only 10 games last night. Could have spread something out. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but they don't put me in charge of the schedule, I guess.
Yeah, you'd think some of these smaller conferences could do a little bit better job trying to get some eyeballs on their games, but I guess we got 6 games tonight to to look at.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in case you're new here, I built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread and total should be for every Division I college basketball game. That information, along with a graded A, B, or C pick for each of today's games not covered in this episode, is available in the Google Sheet link in the show's description. A picks are the ones I love, B picks are the ones I like, and C picks are the leans. However, please remember, good and bad variance will occur, so as much as I'd like to say the model will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Last night, the model went 5-5 on this here podcast. My picks went 3-2. Jake, you went 2-2 with 2 losses, one by a half a point, one depending on when you got it. Chattanooga covered or didn't. I put 1.5 up on the screen, but on BetStip you actually had 0, so that's like a win and a push. It's a win and a loss, right? And Gonzaga was wild last night. They dominated that game. Were out 20 and just stopped playing and let San Francisco get the backdoor cover. I feel like you had the right side on that one, and sometimes that happens in this business, right? You have it pegged, and then all of a sudden things just fall apart at the end, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure why San Francisco didn't press the whole game. Gonzaga's weakness is their guards, and San Francisco got a really good defense. So I'm not sure why they wasn't trying to force that, but they didn't, and came back to bite me.
It reminds me of, we talked previously about that LSU-Kentucky game when Kentucky had no guards. We were like, why didn't LSU start that pressure defense a little bit earlier, right? A little bit in the first half. You can't do it all 40 minutes maybe, but earlier in the second half as it started to deploy, why didn't you do it a little bit more? And sometimes we don't know why the decisions are made, but that kind of is what it is. Jake, what's one thing we should know before we get started?
So today is the last slow day till Monday, right? So get all your weekly chores done. Because after this, it just gets steamrolling with great game after great game after great game and some championships thrown in there. And it's just, today's the last day to get your chores done.
Maybe do some meal prep for the week, right? Make the casseroles, go out on the grill if the weather's nice, right? Grill some chicken for the week. That way you don't have to cook later, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right. A reminder about our schedule for the week. We will do an episode all 7 days this week, including our first Sunday episode where we'll break down all of the conference championships that day. Also, help us get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers by the time the bracket's released, and we'll do a special bracket episode the Monday morning after that comes out. So if you aren't already, please hit that subscribe button. Share with others. Help us out. We really do appreciate it. Tonight, 6 conference championship games, one of them at an earlier time slot, kind of like we were talking about. Why not try to get some eyeballs on? You're going to start off with this 4 p.m. Central game. I like that the Atlantic Sun's done this, right? There's a couple of maybe like an ACC game or something that's less interesting, but this one should get some eyeballs as opposed to cramming all of them together. Jacksonville at Bellarmine. Jacksonville is a 3.5-point underdog. I'm going to start us off hot here with an A pick on Jacksonville plus 3.5. The model thinks it should be Bellarmine -1. This is a true home game for Bellarmine. An interesting fact on this one, of course, is that Bellarmine wins this and does not get to go to the tournament as they are ineligible. Jacksonville goes if they win, and if they lose, then it reverts back to Jacksonville State. So this is a little bit of a confusing one here, that a team not even playing for their conference championship could make the tournament. So obviously Jacksonville State will be in there probably throwing things at the Jacksonville players if they're allowed to. I love Jacksonville here. I love getting 3.5. I like them on the money line too. I think this is a coin toss game. I think they're a better team than Bellarmine. The model is 10-2 backing Jacksonville. And I even got the A fade of them last week. So when the numbers not been good to Jacksonville, I've gone the other direction of that hit. Bellarmine has outperformed my numbers, but not to the extent Jacksonville has. I think there's a lot to like here with Jacksonville. Jake, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm with you with Jacksonville. They are the better team than Bellarmine. They're 8-5 as an underdog with 4 outright wins. So I think they'll add to that number today. Um, they're a decent 3-point shooting team. They just don't shoot a lot. They hit 35% on the year, but only making it around 5 threes. So they're just not shooting a lot. They take care of the ball. I mean, they're average on the year, but here recently in their last three, they've improved to like 9.7 turnovers a game, while forcing a little more than 10. So they're winning the turnover battle. They're probably one of the best teams in the nation at guarding the 3-point arc, holding teams to 28.5% on the year, which is just really good. And especially in a tight game, if you can take away the three ball, make them score twos, that keeps you closer because math. Um,
Solid. It's true.
Yeah, they
Can't refute it.
Heads up.
Certain things out there in the world that you just can't argue with. But with this like slow pace, it took Bellarmine, who won both matchups, and like we stated yesterday and before, it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, and it took really great games out of Fleming and Penn for Bellarmine to win. They outscored their average by over 10 points for each of them, and so I don't think that happens again. I think Jacksonville State also didn't have their second leading scorer and leading shot blocker on the floor for those games. So like, I think he makes all the difference. They win the game, and right now they're projected, like Jacksonville State's the projected 15 seed in most places. So I don't know if everybody's assuming Bellarmine's going to win, so Jacksonville State gets to go. But
I mean, Bellarmine's favored, so I guess that's probably the way you play it.
Yeah, and so I mean. Not much after this for either team.
Yep.
Yeah, so I really want Bellarmine to win this game just because March and chaos and
the insanity of it all
and dumb rules. But I think it's going to be a very, very hard one. They've gotten very lucky to even get to this spot in general. Jacksonville has been good, very good on the defensive side of the ball. And, if Bellarmine can continue to shoot as well as they have been, they'll definitely have a chance in this game. And clearly someone thinks they have a chance because they're the favorite in this game. But yeah, I think Jacksonville really is the better team going into this one. Offensively and defensively, though, I think they match up quite well. But yeah, I think it should probably be about a pick 'em. I think it's really hard to pick a favorite at all in this game. So I like Jacksonville as well.
And both of you talked about the defense. I think in the Jacksonville State game, of course, 2 really good defensive teams. I think I took the over. It's a really low number. It's like 120, and I was like, that number's just too low, right? And it didn't even sniff it. I'm sitting there at the end of the game. It was tight. I'm like, this game gets to overtime. I still probably don't get the over. I probably need 2 overtimes. And that just shows how good that Jacksonville defense is. I think that will be stifling and let them hang in there. And at that point, you're getting a lot of value taking those.
Yeah, that's another thing for those dumb rules that Chris was mentioning, right? So Jacksonville beats Jacksonville State in the tournament, but somehow doesn't get to go even though they made the championship. That just doesn't make sense. But
yeah. Yeah, definitely weird. At 6 p.m. Central, we've got Wagner at Bryant for another conference championship game. Bryant is a 3.5-point favorite, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's the same situation. I have Bryant should be a 1-point favorite, so it's an A pick for me. That's back-to-back A picks here now on Wagner plus 3.5. I think this should be a wild game. Bryant plays really fast, but the worst unit on this court is going to be their defense. So it's kind of an interesting strategy to try to play fast. I guess they're trying to hide how bad their defense is and kind of say, hey, if we give up fast break points, we can't stop them in the half court anyway. So maybe that's the strategy. I think this is a who the heck knows game, lots of points in it. And so if you're getting 3.5, I think that's a gift. It is another true road game. This is at Bryant, but I think the line here of 3.5 implies that these teams are relatively similar. And I think that Wagner is the better team and can hang in there. I think whether it's points or money line or split, I think it's just like that first game. I think the dogs are offering some value here in these first 2 games. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I don't think Wagner, the numbers have caught up to what Wagner's doing in their recent run here. And like in their last 3, they've moved their 3-point percentage from 29 to 40. They're making 9 threes instead of 5. They're turning it over at 14.2% of their possessions instead of 17.5. So they've really figured something out here. They're a good free throw shooting team, hitting a little over 70%. And this is another really good they've actually got a fairly good defense, especially like in their conference. It's a really, really good defense. Maybe not as a whole, but and they hold teams under 30% from beyond the arc. So that getting points with them, it seems to be a really good proposition. And they split the regular season matchups. Thing is, both teams have a very thin bench and at a fast pace. We'll see. Like I'm very, very surprised Bryant doesn't have a better bench, wanting to run like they do. But I think the Wagner's defense is enough to keep the game close, probably even win it. And this is an like for your bracket pool kind of deal. If you consider the play-in games as part of it, right now the winner of this game is projected to be in one of the play-in games. So maybe keep an extra eye on this for that kind of scenario, because obviously they're a 16 seed, not going too much farther.
Yeah, I thought we were talking about yesterday, right? Depending on if there's a ton of upsets, they might get bumped to that 15 spot. But if not, then yeah, they would be a 16 for sure. And then just the question becomes, are they a 16 in the play-in games or not? Chris, what's your take?
Yeah, so I really wanted to take Bryant in this game, taken them a few times this season, and they're actually kind of a fun team to watch at times.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with this one, I think being at home has kind of made this spread too high, in my opinion. I don't really see why Wagner should be, 3.5 point underdogs going into this game. And while I do absolutely love this Bryant team, they've only lost like one game since January 6th or something. It's an insane record or insane run that they went on. It's just hard to lay points like that in the conference championship. I kind of just end up leaning the dog because you got two of the best teams in the conference anyway, and it feels like it's just going to be a very, very competitive game. Wagner's done a very good job shooting the ball this season, and I think they probably end up covering this one again.
Yeah, you make a good point there. It's like the home court there's bumping this number out an extra like point or point and a half than it should be. So there's value on the dog. If you think it's gonna be a tight game and the spread's one or like Chattanooga yesterday, of course, only won by one, spread's one. It's a little bit different. But when it gets out to this number, yeah, I'm like you. It's a kind of like just kind of default to the dog here. It's two really good teams. It's not like some of the ones later we'll talk about where it's like one team is drastically better than the other one. These teams are pretty even here. So it should be a tight game. I think there's a lot of value there on Wagner. At that same time slot, 6 p.m., the Colonial Athletic Championship, Delaware versus UNC Wilmington. UNC Wilmington is a 2-point underdog here with a total of 135. I'm taking over 135. Most of my picks yesterday were unders. Most of my picks today are unders. But that doesn't mean we want to blindly take every single under out there. I think this number is just too low. The model thinks 139, so a solid edge there. I've pegged both of these teams fairly accurate all season. The model is penalizing for neutral court tourney effect, so I'm bringing the total down on that. I've got under on UNC Wilmington 4 times, lost all 4. So I think being on the over is a better feel for them, and I'm 9-5 on Delaware over. So I think 135 is not enough points, again, even factoring in the neutral court effect there. Jake, who wins this one? Delaware against UNC Wilmington.
This is a scary one, but I'm leaning Delaware here. They've got a fairly good offense. They're scoring 74, almost 75 points a game, and they're ranked 29th in effective field goal percentage, and they hit 34, 35% of the threes in between those two, making about 7 to 8 threes a game. And they're a decent free throw shooting team, but have been struggling here recently. They've dropped from 74.5 to 69 in their past 3 games. They can be a little sloppy at times, and their defense is rough, but they're improving. They guard the three-point arc fairly well. I mean, the last 3 is kind of a skewed statistic because it says 16.4%, but that's also a factor of who they played. That not really great three-point shooting teams. And UNC Wilmington has won both the previous matchups, 1 by 7 and 1 by 2, but they were able to hold Jameer Nelson Jr. down below his average. I think tonight he gets it going along with Dylan Painter, and they do enough to win this game and cover it. And this is another one like the last one. They're in the play-in game as a 16 seed, so if your bracket bowl considers that as extra bonus points or tiebreakers or something, that might be this is one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I bet on this Delaware team last night when they were going up against Townsend, and the way they shot the ball at moments in that game was just absolutely insane. It seemed like they couldn't miss shots at times. And I mean, if they can do that again here tonight, I don't think they should have any problem. Offensively, they should have been a very, very strong team. I kind of agree with Jake on most of what he said. It all comes down to what their defense ends up doing in this game. If they can play even decent basketball, I think they have a pretty good chance of winning this one. UNC Wilmington has kind of been a team that I have faded a lot this season, which hasn't necessarily been a profitable decision.
I'm in the same boat there with you.
Yeah, but it's just the numbers just don't seem to add up, but yet they just keep covering, keep winning games. It's a hard team to fade, but I think I got to do it again here. I really love this Delaware team and how they've shot the ball. So I'm on Delaware in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. You got to trust your numbers on that one. And you talked about the defenses, of course. According to Ken Palm, both these teams are above average offenses and below average defenses. So it surprises me that this total is coming down, given the way that both teams can struggle defensively. And I'm with you. I think whoever shows up defensively is going to have a better opportunity to win. But I think that both of them showing up defensively seems unlikely, given what we've seen from these two teams. And then shifting to the later time slot here, 8 p.m. Central, a game that will feature a team, should the favorite win, will not be one of those play-in games in South Dakota State, is a 5-point favorite there at that neutral site against North Dakota State. Total of 154. Jake mentioned especially some of these totals in the Summit games get a lot of fun. South Dakota State and North Dakota State just could not miss last night. If both those teams come out hitting like that, this game's going to get probably into the 200s. I think South Dakota State could have easily scored well over 100 last night if they wanted to, but they didn't need to. North Dakota State put up 90. I don't see North Dakota State shooting above 60% again, and I think that South Dakota State is just a much better team. So I have another A play for you. A play on South Dakota State -5. The model thinks it should be 7.5. Model's 3-0-1 on A plays of South Dakota State. The number's been spot on for them, and North Dakota State's actually underperformed on numbers. So I think there's a lot to like here. I think South Dakota State gets it done. I love the number at 5 because if it is close, then fouls have an easy chance to take us outside of that number. So I think South Dakota State is the way you want to look on this one. Jake, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I'm totally in on this South Dakota State team. They are just an incredible offense, shoot the ball at an unreal clip, and then it's consistent, right? They shoot 44.3 from the three-point arc on the year, and then their last 3 and their last 5, they're right around that 44 number. They're just constantly right there. They're making 8 to 9 a game and sometimes more, and I don't think North Dakota State has the defense to really even get in their way. And the South Dakota State team is just one of the most fun teams to watch because they score like crazy. Defense is an afterthought, but they're just a lot of fun to watch. And I really don't understand the line being at 5. They beat North Dakota State by 16 twice. I'm not sure why we went all the way down to 5, but I'll take your wins where you can get them.
Yep, Chris.
Yeah, and I actually watched both of these regular season games between these two teams, and I'm going to go on the other side a little bit. North Dakota State, while at moments didn't look great, actually played a couple of competitive moments in those games. Sure, it's going to take their best game here to go and get it, but I really do like how this North Dakota State team has been playing. I think that I wish it was a little higher than 5. It does make it a little harder play there. And right, South Dakota State is so good shooting the basketball. Offensively, they're a hard team to get through. But defensively, they leave some openings and they leave opportunities for North Dakota State. If North Dakota State could, like you said, shoot as well as they did last night, they can definitely stay in this game. Granted, that's not an easy task by any means. But in general, I think this game is probably just going to stay close. I think South Dakota State could potentially let it get close at the end. And I just really like backing this North Dakota State team. So less of a numbers play on this one and more of a what I saw in the first 2 games, which maybe isn't the smartest way to take it. But I do like North Dakota State in this game.
You bring up an interesting point, though. It is tough to try to rectify the matchups and what happened in the previous games versus having data on all 30-ish games, right? You can't overweight or underweight either one. And it's a tough balance to strike because sometimes it is about the matchups and you say this happened before and it's going to happen again. And the other games, matter less. Other times you say, yeah, that was just kind of a fluke here. You have to look at the overall body of work. It's a tough balance to strike. It sounds like we all think that South Dakota State's the better team. The question is just how much should they win by? I'm like you, if this number was out in the 7-8 range, then you're a little bit more worried about how the late game will go. But at 5, I just think that 5 offers a lot of value there on South Dakota State personally. And then at that same time slot here, 8 p.m. Central, St. Mary's versus Gonzaga. Gonzaga's a 13.5-point favorite with a total of 142. Believe it or not, I have 4 A plays for you today on games that we're talking about. It's an A play on St. Mary's plus 13.5. This line is, I'm going to call this the dumbest line of the night. And that does not mean that Gonzaga can win by 20, because we have seen Gonzaga beat anybody by that score, no matter how good they are. The model thinks it should be 9.5, and that 10 number seems about right. They let San Francisco back in it. St. Mary's has a better defense than San Francisco does. The model's 2-0 on A plays of St. Mary's. St. Mary's covered the first 2 times. They've overperformed my numbers more than Gonzaga has. I've faded St. Mary's 15 times this year. So you can't say that I have a bias to picking St. Mary's. There's nothing in the numbers that would indicate that. Gonzaga, I've played them 5 times and faded them 7, so there's no bias there. This number just doesn't make any sense to me. We've seen that Gonzaga has the ability to hang in there with this Gonzaga team. They got that win, which was incredible. That doesn't mean that I think they'll get the win again, but there are so many ways that they can cover this 13.5 number. I just don't understand this. And I want to point out one thing. I mentioned that I had just come from a sports analytics conference this weekend. There were people there from sports books who work on the programming teams to make the numbers that they post. And I asked this question specifically related to this game. I asked the guy, I said, how much are you concerned with pegging the number perfectly accurate versus knowing what people's perceptions are? And without hesitation, he said, we want to make the number as accurate as possible. He said, in general, we think if we make a more accurate number, even if people's perceptions are off and we have 80% of the money on one side, he said, in general, we know we're going to lose that sometimes, but there's enough volume on enough games that we're going to win in the long run. He said, we're only concerned about making the number accurate, which blows my mind is why this is 13.5. So I say all that to say, I don't think this is people like to come up with narratives, and people are going to say, oh, they're just making it that high because they're begging you to take St. Mary's. I think it's a false narrative. I think they actually think the number should be 13.5, and it makes no sense to me. I think the St. Mary's team is good enough to hang in there and not get the doors blown off of them. Doesn't mean they won't, but I think if you play this game 10 times, I think St. Mary's covers that easily, 6 of them. Jake, I know you're on the opposite side, so I'll let you give your Gonzaga spiel, and then Chris, you'll get to be our tiebreaker here. So Jake, why are you laying the number with Gonzaga?
I like Gonzaga. They're the more talented team. They've got the best 2, maybe 2.5 players on the floor with Chet Holmgren and Drew Timme. I don't think St. Mary's can get lightning in a bottle twice and get this game where they needed to be. I think Gonzaga is going to come out mad, especially last night. If Mark Few doesn't light a fire under their butts for this game, and like with the loss and how they let San Francisco come back in, Gonzaga's going to be in some trouble when it comes into March. I mean, they're obviously going to make the tournament, but I mean that means they are struggling at the end of games if they let it happen again. And I don't think he's going to do that. I think they're going to keep their foot down and do it. They're going to take complete advantage of the whole Chet Holmgren and Timme matchup where they can just stretch you out or let them dribble the ball up the floor if they need to. If they get a decent game out of their guards, like Nembhard, if he scores a little bit more than his average, I think St. Mary's is going to have a really tough time scoring enough to keep up. You're right. They have a great defense, and it's incredible. It's just that offense. They really need a slow pace, and I think Gonzaga is going to control the pace and just run up and down, and it's going to be everything St. Mary's doesn't want it to be.
All right, yeah. Tiebreaker.
This one's a hard one to break the tie on. When I first started looking at it, I thought, because I didn't know the spread at the time, I had Gonzaga, around 10, and I'm like, oh yeah, I like Gonzaga at that number, and then it comes out at 13.5, and it becomes a really hard number to take Gonzaga on. St. Mary's, obviously makes this game really interesting since they outright won that final game of the season. And Gonzaga really didn't look good in that game. Like you said, they blew it last night against San Francisco late. And this Gonzaga team, I mean, when they're playing their best basketball, they're the best team in the country. They have the ability to blow out most teams in the country. But, St. Mary's, if they show up, and we've seen them do that before, and when they shut down Gonzaga, they have a chance. If St. Mary's defense, I think, is the real question mark in this game. If they show up, I really think they have a good chance. And like it's 13.5. Yeah, like you said, it feels like a weird number, and going against Gonzaga is hard in some of these West Coast Conference games, even in the conference tournament game. But it's just too many points, in my opinion. It's too far off where I thought it would be. I got to take St. Mary's in this one.
Yeah, like I said, the model makes it Gonzaga minus 9.5. And if you said 9.5, 10, if you even said 10.5, I would have said that seems right. You don't want to go against Gonzaga unless you've got a really, really good team or you're getting a lot of points. And 13.5 is just a lot of points here. I think last night was only the third game all season that St. Mary's had allowed more than 70 points. Even if they allow 75 to Gonzaga, they still got a good chance to cover it. If they keep Gonzaga below 70, they will cover the number. Even if they lose, they won't lose by more than 14. And that brings us to the segment that you don't want to disagree with Jake on, the formerly known as Solo Jake. We're throwing some new names around for this one. I'm going to see if I can get someone to laugh on it here. I'm calling it Blindly Tail Jake's Tail, because you don't want to do anything else in these segments here. Wright State versus Northern Kentucky, the last conference championship game that we have not talked about so far. 6 p.m. Central. Northern Kentucky is a 1-point favorite. Jake, model doesn't have really a strong play on either the side or the total, so this has been your specialty. Which way should we be looking in this one? Who wins between Wright State and Northern Kentucky?
But don't fall in love with this Northern Kentucky team with what they did last night. All right, Wright State's the play here. They are a very good team. They're the better team in this scenario. This Northern Kentucky team got really lucky last night, and that I can't remember who they played off the top of my head, but they could not. Oh, Purdue Fort Wayne could not score at all. They were airballing layups and things that from their leading scorer got 4 points or something like that. So it wasn't that they were forcing them into it. It was Purdue couldn't score. Wright State is a better offense than Purdue Fort Wayne. They've got the 87th ranked effective field goal percentage team, and that's gone up quite to 52 in their last 3 games. They're not a great three-point shooting team, but in their last 3, they're improving and hitting almost 40% instead of the 32 and giving them an extra 3.5 a game. They're a really good free throw shooting team, hitting around 76% of their free throws on the year, hitting 79 in their last 3. So, like with a short number, that becomes really important. They're not a great defense by any metric. They guard the three-point arc very well. Once again, I think this is more of a factor of who they played. But in their last 3, they're only allowing 18.4%. So it's probably somewhere in the middle. It's probably closer to that low 30s number, maybe high 20s, and not 18. But 18 is a real nice number if they can keep it down there. I think they lost both the previous matchups, but they couldn't get both their leading scorers on the same page. But now Holden and Basile are averaging over 18 in the tournament since that started going, and I think they keep that going. I think they both show up tonight, and they get the win.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to default to Jake on this one. This game was probably the hardest for me to come up with a side on in all these conference tournament games, or all these conference championship games, rather. Both of these teams I've bet against a lot this season, and it never ended well. I don't know why I kept doing it. I kept just fading them for some reason. But it's so hard to choose a side in this one, in my opinion. They both played well. They both have some weaknesses, some some positives going into this game. Overall, though, yeah, I just got to go with Jake on this one. If he's taking Wright State, I'm going with him. I like Wright State.
I think that makes a lot of sense here. I have backed both of these teams a combined 13 times, and I'm 1-12.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is why I said this is one that I don't have anything extra. I'm like you. I'm just going to default to Jake here. Jake's on Wright State. I'm on Wright State. I like it. Wright State's playing a little bit better, I will say, also as the season's gone along, because they were kind of a disappointment. We expected a little bit more from them. Early on, they were a little bit down, and now they've kind of come back, gotten to be more where we thought they might be. So if they do win this one, they're a team that I'm really interested to see how they do in the tournament. See if this is kind of real and they actually get back to kind of their form from last year. And that takes us to our buzzer beater segments. I have no more A plays. I've used them all up, all 4 of my A plays today, so I have no more A plays. But Chris, you have a buzzer beater that you want to talk about, so I'm going to hand the floor over to you.
Yeah, so my favorite game today, Fairfield -2.5 taking on Canisius. Fairfield did win both of these regular season matchups between these two teams. They were both very low scoring games. I think it was a 6 and a 4-point win. But Fairfield's just a team that doesn't have a huge edge, but they have a slight edge in pretty much every category going into this game. Canisius has really struggled to shoot the ball. Fairfield shot the ball pretty well. Canisius has really just kind of been that underwhelming team. The Fairfield defense has been fairly strong, not great, but for a MAC team, it's been good enough. And really, I think this spread is too low for Fairfield. It feels, a little bit like a dangerous pick at times. Both these teams I have concerns with certain areas. Neither one of them is a great basketball team. I mean, they both have losing records. But I do like Fairfield in this matchup. Overall, like I said, I think they're just a stronger team across the board. Have a little bit of an edge. I like them -2.5.
Although Chris, I have to point out, I feel like you need to say that extra A, right? It's not that they're a MAC team; they're a MAC team.
The MAC.
The MAC. There's 2 A's there, right? It's because if we didn't have an MAC already, it'd be different. But having an MAC and an MAAC, it's like how do you emphasize it? The MAAC? Like that sounds even worse, right?
Yeah. I never know what to say for their conference.
Someone drop in the comment, like someone probably knows, like this is how you're supposed to say it. Someone let us know so that we can be educated and learn ourselves. Jake, I think you got a buzzer beater for us as well.
I like this Manhattan team. I think we've got the wrong team favored. I'm personally playing the money line with them because it's +1, but having points is never a bad thing. So I like Manhattan +1 in this. But then I like yesterday, I'm gonna give out some long shot futures here with some of these tournaments that start tomorrow. Like Richmond has moved up to 1,000. I think they're a very good team, so they're at a +1,000 to win the tournament. Like I said, these are long shots, so don't go all in on them or anything. Like obviously, it's just something to put on, something to cheer for while you're watching the games. Maybe make a little money in the end. So like Richmond +1,000 for the A10. I like TCU. They've shown they can beat Kansas. They've had some really good wins. They've got a really good defense. They're +1,600 to win this Big 12. So if they can get through maybe a game or two, and then maybe Baylor or whoever they're running into, and then towards the championship isn't fully trying for it, and they can grab it. And then the Big East, I've got 2 for you. I've got Seton Hall, who if they get healthy, they are one of the better teams in the Big East. But if they're not, they're at +1,600. So something to keep an eye out. And then St. John's getting to basically play at home with Champagny and Posh Alexander is a really good one to watch out for. They've been playing well recently, and they're +2,700 right now. And then Michigan this is probably my favorite long shot that's going out there right now with the Big Ten. Nobody really wants to win it. And Michigan's playing well here at the end. So they're +2,100 to win it all right now. They've got a really good player in Hunter Dickinson. If Caleb Houston starts shooting the ball well, he keeps shooting the ball well, I think they stand a really good chance to pull it off. And then probably the most volatile team on this list is going to be Alabama. If their threes are going in and they can push the pace, they could easily win the tournament like they beat Gonzaga and Houston. Or they could be upset in the very first one because they forget how to play defense and can't shoot the ball. So it's very risky. They're +1,600, but I'm taking a chance on them because I think they might get hot.
All right, and that is all we have for you today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder, check out that Google Sheet for picks on all of today's games not covered in this show. If you haven't yet, click that subscribe button to get a new episode every weekday and Saturdays. And this week, Sunday, during the season here, dropped right into your feed. Check out Chris. Again, his information is in the description on Twitter and on YouTube at HotTipBets. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, remember, if you need your betting money, please don't bet your eating money.